Good evening. Welcome to the Daily Discourse. This evening's topic, it comes from a question on formal prayers. I'm going to interpret that as in reading or perhaps memorizing prayers, and maybe why that might be beneficial. Very simply, I guess just addressing the general idea of prayers and or scripture and how that benefits our daily lives, making that a part of our daily lives. So in this regard, right, we would think of the mind like a closet. And the closet doesn't have an endless supply of space. And some closets are arguably filled well beyond capacity. Most stimuli throughout the day is put into that space. And so I think as far as between that and what we surround ourselves with, something we've spoken about in the past, right? Movies, music, conversations. I think it's important to maybe consider all of the space that we have and what we're putting into it, consciously and unconsciously. So going with this visualization, right? When you open a closet, usually the things that you see first are things that were recently put in, or the stuff that we, I guess, need more frequently or use more frequently. Things that have been recently added. So sometimes things get stuck in the very back and they rarely see the light of day, but sometimes they do. And so as we fill our thoughts with songs or thinking about conversations, we should think about that being the wardrobe in this closet of our minds. So adding prayer into that space breaks it up a little bit, because the more elements of this nature in our lives, the more space that must be made for them. And so then perhaps you're walking down the street, and rather than our thoughts taking control, or rather than singing a song from the radio or thinking about a movie or something that happened that was unpleasant in the day or something that was really exciting, a prayer might come to mind if it's in the mix there. And it sort of resets our focus back towards our spiritual development. So in this closet of the mind, right, let's say there's 12 shirts hanging there, and 5 of them are pop songs, 2 are movie quotes, 3 are emotional attachments of some sort, and 2 are prayers. So if we have these idle moments, right, where there is that brief stillness, the mind has this tendency to want to fill up empty time, and it's almost like running to the closet and grab something to fill the void. And it grabs something without really looking or thinking about it, and just throws it into that space. And so the more prayers that we put in there, the better chance of something like that just coming in randomly. And it's very helpful in, again, kind of resetting us, especially if it's unexpected. However, longer term, it helps to maintain a more constant focus on God and on our spiritual development. So sometimes if we find ourselves in an overwhelmed place, one of those prayers might happen to come to mind, and making that effort to fill that space with prayers, right? That's all a big part of it. And again, this is where it kind of comes back to self-discipline, because you see at some point a person will have to make a conscious decision to turn off the TV or put down a book and to spend some time memorizing a prayer. And you don't have to memorize it, right? It's not, spiritual development is not based on what you can memorize, not so much at all. This is just, again, a means of kind of refocusing ourselves. And if you have the ability to memorize things, that's wonderful. But even just making time to spend time dedicated to prayers, or to reading prayers or reading scripture, it will have a much better long-term benefit, especially because we have to choose to replace something with that, whether it's watching a movie or having silly conversations or things like that. And yes, there's benefits to all these things, but understanding that the more that we spend time with this, the more it will benefit us. The more time we tend that garden, the better it will bloom, the better it will grow, at least so far as our control in it is concerned. It's like anything, right? The more practice, the more time you put into it, the more proficient we become, and the more transforming it is. If you go running every day, it will transform you quicker and more sustainably so, and you'll find joy in that eventually. hopefully. And if there are already prayers deep in those back recesses of the closet, right, maybe it's time to dust them out and dust them off and pull them out and perhaps do spring cleaning while you're back there. But in regards to what we just said, right, if I heard somebody say that if you want to be a millionaire, you study the lives and habits of millionaires. And so if we're making conscious effort in spiritual development, if this is where you are in life, right, then maybe studying the lives and the habits of the saints in the same way and giving ourselves to prayer, or whatever capacity we can do that, is part of that, is part of making that our main focus. And so in part, right, we have to examine what the day looks like and see where our time really goes, and then reassess and reprioritize as this way is kind of developed, right? It's this developmental process. And eventually, as we develop it further this way of life, prayer becomes the comfort that we seek. It becomes, in a sense, like the distraction. And I mean that very loosely. I mean it so far as when we seek a distraction, rather than just flipping through the phone or checking emails over and over, or saying, well, I have nothing else to do, I guess I'll just watch a TV show. Instead, we are more inclined to turn to prayer rather than these idle ways to kind of fill time. And it begins by kind of reevaluating and restructuring where the day goes. So find little prayers that you find inspirational or helpful, and maybe put them around the house, and as you cook or as you clean or anything that you're doing, right, in these little places, you can read over one and perhaps put it into the mind forever. But otherwise, at the very least, they'll be around. You can put one on the television remote or on the computer. And every time you go to turn on the computer or on the TV, you could just make a habit of saying that prayer first, and put one by your desk, by the door, and just making these little reminders for ourselves. And so the more it kind of integrates into our life, and the more that we are more focused on that, the more the focus comes to prayer. You can eventually take these things down. You don't have to have them constantly around, because then you build clutter on the other side, which is, there's a fine balance in all of this. But just to begin that process of integrating prayer into everything that we do. So I hope this helps. I hope that answers the question. As always, thank you for listening. And tomorrow will be another stream. Like yesterday was a stream of a podcast. Tomorrow will be another stream similar to that. So I'm looking forward to it. And again, thank you for listening. Have a good evening.